We are live. So how are you today?
I'm great. I am so great. It is such a beautiful day here. I mean, I've still got my sweater on because the sun's not shining on my balcony yet, but it's going to be a good day. Not 100 and what did you say?
115. Later in
Wow.
the week, it's
No.
supposed to go higher than that.
Oh my. No, it's supposed to be like in the mid 20s, a little bit more here. So that's lovely. For like this year, there has been more rain than Spain. It's been
Okay.
pouring. So
Uh,
this is beautiful. This is beautiful. Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
is 20 Celsius? What's that in Fahrenheit?
I
I
have
don't
no
know.
clue.
I'll have
I
to
have
look
no
it up
clue.
later.
No clue. Warm enough to be able to wear shorts pretty soon and not have to dress in the Alberta layers, right? Where you've got the little shirt underneath and then another layer and then a sweater with shorts, pants and socks, jacket in the trunk, perhaps a toque. Yeah, so it's nice.
You
It's
never know.
nice.
You never know.
No, no. And then that's what being an Albertan taught me, how to roll with nature.
Yeah, well, you would have to. You do the same wherever you live, I think. Even in this extreme heat, you just have to adapt accordingly.
Yep. Yep. And I do not succumb to any of that womanly hot flash thing. I run hot all the time. I know that. And it's not just because I'm 50. It's because I have a really, I'm working through some of the energy centers in my body. So my adrenals, my kidneys, my spleen, my gallbladder, supposedly the places where there's trapped anger, go figure. So I've been using a lot of the minty, wintergreen, anything that'll cool my internal temperature.
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's
You have
fun.
a lot of natural things that'll work for us if we just pay attention.
Well, and if we embrace them instead of being afraid of them,
Hmm.
there's so much fear. And that's why I do what I do to help people understand that there are so many options available. I mean, so many. And so many of them are just non-intrusive, no contraindications. It's just a never-ending plethora of wonder, absolute
Wonderful. There's
wonder.
a lot of wonderful things available to us. And,
Yeah.
I've been working with she calls herself etheric medicine. And, for years and years and years, I had issues, just tummy hurt. And the doctors all say, there's nothing. Tummy hurts. And she said it was more on a spiritual level. So she had me do breathing exercises and a few other things. And for the first time in probably since my whole life, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it's
That's
interesting how that
wonderful.
goes. So there's so many things on an energetic level that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been ingesting something that's called a milk mushroom. It's from Russia. And it is this little spore in the bottom of a glass jar. And it was passed on to me from my sister of design and my bonus sister. And I add milk to it and I stir with a plastic spoon. I add milk and I stir, and eventually a yogurt grows out of it. And then I add honey because it's nasty. It's so bitter. Like, it's the bitterest yogurt I've ever had, but I add yogurt and then I take it like a shot of tequila, fast and furious. And I have been able to ingest bread and milk like when I was 20.
Really, that's interesting.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. None of the fellows in my family will touch it. My sweet Ralph will not touch it. My son Chance, I'm like, I got this milk mushroom. He's like, I am not eating that, but he suffers. So it's when we come to a point of faith, grace, hope, or tremendous pain that we sometimes reach for the things that have always been available to us.
Right. Right.
Always.
And there's always the books on different herbs that say that wherever you live,
Yes.
there's a remedy for whatever ails you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A friend of mine said to me, she goes, I've got yarrow all over my grass. Come and pick it. And I'm like, yarrow. I'm like, I didn't know what it was. So I asked Spirit, And all I heard was this beautiful look down. So I'm like, come on, right? And I look down, I'm like, oh my God, that's yarrow. This is cool. I think I'm going to do herbology after I finish my reflexology and my Reiki, my 11th CD, my memoir, my, right?
And you've got all.
I'm only 50. I plan on living to be 123.
Well, you've got a lot of time to complete, and then there'll
Absolutely.
always be more.
Always, always another spin around the sun, right? Another lifetime.
Right.
Another lifetime. So how did you become involved in Sacred Hearts Rising? Because you're in book 1,
Mm-hmm.
2?
No, I just did one.
Just 1. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I had met Brenda before I even got involved in that, and she was in one of my series called We Choose to Thrive. And
It's called which? What is it called?
We Choose to Thrive.
Okay.
And so I had written my own book called The Woman I Love.
Okay.
It's been close to 4 or 5 years ago. And it was amazing because it was my story. I grew up in a really, really abusive household as a child, and it went on through early adulthood. My early adulthood, I chose a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have chose if I had had more of a idea of what good and what you do in your inner soul know that something's amiss. But when you grow up in a highly abusive household, you don't have the barometers to know that what to do about it all.
Yeah.
And you don't have anything to compare with what's good compared to the stuff that you're facing. So starting out in your young adulthood, you kind of make a lot of mistakes till you figure it out for yourself. And so it took me a long time to get through figuring out a whole different way of how to even the shame, guilt, and fear, all those things that we experience, because those are the things that we faced. And we didn't have what I don't know that anybody knows what normal is, but we didn't have that to go through. So when I wrote that book, it was amazing because that's how I met Brenda. That's how I met so many people.
Oh, so Brenda first, not Brenda.
Pardon me?
Brenda first and then Brenda.
Brenda and Brenda Hammond.
Okay, Brenda Hammond. Okay, sorry, yeah, I understand now.
Okay. Actually, I had gone up to Canada. Joe Dibley was doing a course, and which had an event, and I went there, and there was Sue Ferreira. There's a whole bunch, Brenda, a whole bunch of people, and that was when the first realization that there was a better way. I knew there was a better way, but this one gave me a lot of guidance, and that's when I made the decision to write my book. And the response from that was pretty amazing. And I had built a Facebook groups and a Facebook page, and people were reaching out to me saying, thank you for having the courage to write something like that, and paving the way for us to tell our stories. So then I did 2 books called We Choose to Thrive, and each one of them had about 25 women, and Brenda was in the first one. Brenda Hammond was in the first one, sharing her story in one chapter. And what transpired from that was, it was so fascinating because a lot of those women, it was the first time they had shared their stories, but it set them free. Sometimes there's something about, releasing it to the universe and it really changes. And it once you share it out, not only do you find a lot of love and support, you find out you're not alone.
Yes.
You find out that there's ways that we can learn to adapt and also learn to grow and heal. And this is what's so important. And so now, as far as I do publishing for all kinds of people. That's what I do, is I'm a book publisher. But right now I'm getting ready to publish one more book from somebody else that's telling her story, and it's an amazing story. It's of
Oh,
her overcoming abuse, and almost woke up to a stepdad almost murdering her. And the story is just incredible, and the journey that she's been on. So even though I do a wide variety of different types of books now, as far as working with authors, I still have a fair share of people that are stepping up and telling their stories.
oh,
And
wonderful.
through that, I'm just creating a course about the power of advocacy
Oh,
and
good.
a story well told.
Mm,
And the importance of those of us that make a choose to thrive, to stand up and tell our stories, to be the light, hold the light for others that are coming behind us, that need to know that there is a huge resource of others that have gone through these kind of things, that are
yes.
willing to be advocates for those that are just now stepping forward, show the way, unite people just as you are doing, and so many others. Unite those that need to know that there is these things available, and show the way. Just
It's
show the way.
incredible. It's incredible. I did not even, I had dabbled with the universe and manifestation back in 2010. I was manifesting more time in my life so that I could begin my yoga teacher training. And my daughter and I, we created a plan, and that plan was for Mommy to go to yoga teacher training, and then Emily was going to stay with her cousin Sheila, and she was going to take care of Sheila's son. So Emily wasn't being cared for, because God knows at 10 years old, she did not need a babysitter. She took care of herself. I mean, she had her own cell phone. It was epic. And so we had it all planned, and I applied for the teacher training, and I was accepted, and I was so excited. And that was on August the 22nd. So August the 24th was my dad's birthday, and she called him and she wished him a happy birthday, and he saved the message. And then on August the 26th, she passed. And I believed that I manifested it because I wanted more time without children. So I blamed myself so much for her passing. I was exponentially angry with the boat driver beyond anything that was even palatable. I was angry at her father. I was angry at a lot of men in my life. And I was more angry at myself than anybody else. And for months, I would wake up and just curse the fact that I was alive. I wanted to be somewhere else. I wanted to be in heaven. It was that simple. And I had a tremendous friend who helped guide me. She helped guide me to a picture on the intranet that said "in heaven." It was a picture that I posted on Facebook. And she helped me connect with my guides. And she did Reiki on me until I was able to begin physical exercise. My sister by design, Tanya, she suggested that I start working out at the gym because she was working in an office next to a gym. And I'm like, no, I do yoga. And she's like, well, maybe you could do weightlifting, just maybe come to the gym. And I'm like, oh, nope. And she bugged me and bugged me and bugged me until I finally, if I do this, will you leave me alone? So I learned to really, really push myself. I had a young trainer. When I went, she was setting me up with a trainer named Jessie. So in my mind, it was, blonde, 23-year-old, young thing, little girl. So I got there and introduced myself, and a young man came up and he said, I will show you around the gym. And I'm like, okay. Really, really nice young man. And then he said, so when would you like to get started? And I said, when I meet Jessie. And he said, I am Jessie. And I'm like, of course you are. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I just really thought you were a woman. He goes, if you want to get a woman trainer, that's fine. I said, no. You'll do just fine. Right. And I'm like, I can't believe she did this to me. Like, she's such a little sprite. And by the time I was done my training, I was able to deadlift 185 pounds.
Wow.
I didn't know. I mean, I broke through so many barriers. I remember crying on the mat. I remember pulling myself up with these rings, listening to Emily's playlist. And it was black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. And then a soft song came on and I absolutely crumbled. And there were all these guys that were working out around me because I didn't work out with the women. I worked out with the guys. I didn't like women at that point much at all. And so I'm devastated. And I opened up my eyes and they scattered. They're like, oh my God, there's a woman crying. What do we do? And they just all left. And the physical breakthrough was really, really important for me. It was tremendous because I had completely lost touch with my physical body. I didn't know anything about my emotions anymore. All I knew was that I was pissed right off. And I began to soften. As my body strengthened, I began to soften. It was really interesting.
That's incredible. How did your daughter pass away?
Emily was on a sea-doo with her brother, Jarrett. It was our last day in Kelowna. We had spent the summer there. We rented this beautiful lake house right on the waterfront next to the El Dorado in Kelowna. And they'd gone for their last sea-doo ride because we were flying out the next day to go home. Em was starting school and she was going into grade 5. And they were going to the ferry docks and she was going to jump off the ferry docks. And I didn't know because if I had known, they wouldn't be going. And so she was intimidated by the ferry docks and didn't jump. So they were coming back and Jarrett's fiance was on the other sea-doo and she was well ahead and she stopped to wait for them. And she was off of her sea-doo, whether she was peeing in the water or just floating about. And a boat came and the boat saw what seemed to be an unaccompanied sea-doo. It swerved to miss her and it hit Jarrett and Emily died instantly. Jarrett's shoulder was just, it was like an army situation. It was torn open. There was shrapnel everywhere. His patella was smashed. And he had such a massive concussion that he was having repetitive language. So he said, I killed my baby sister. My dad's going to be mad. Where's my mom? And he said this over and over and over again. And I had received a phone call. But I was standing on the dock looking out of the water and I thought I saw one of our sea-doos. But I'm like, well, that's impossible because they're out there sea-dooing. And then I looked over in a tree and there were 10 birds in the tree. And I remember counting them like 10 little Indians. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I heard a bleep, bleep. And I thought, what's that? So I walked back slowly. And there was a message on my phone and it was from the manager at the El Dorado. And it said, there's been an accident with a sea-doo. And I just, oh my God. So I ran back down to the dock and I could see my husband at the time, my ex-husband now, his boat. And I was waving and waving and waving frantically. And he came and he said, what's the matter? I said, there's been an accident with the sea-doo. And he's like, what? And I tossed him my phone so he could listen to the message. He heard the message, tossed the phone back, and he burned off. And I went running and got, my niece Nikita was there and her aunt Eloise. So I said, Eloise, you need to watch Nikita. We need to go. There's been an accident. And she was such a kind soul. She said, okay, even though it was her, maternal instinct to go with me. And so I went to grab my keys from the top of the fridge, gorgeous 2012 orange Camaro. I call her Daisy. And I was getting ready to drive. And Tanya stood in the doorway and she said, give me the keys. And I'm like, get out of my way. And she's like, Nance, give me the keys. I said, Tanya, you heard me. Get out of my way. And she wouldn't move. And I just took the keys and I just flicked them at her and she caught them. And we drove and we were driving towards the hospital because if there's an accident, someone's been injured. But as we came up to the El Dorado, all we saw were lights. There was no sound. And I knew instantly that there was something wrong. So we went in there and I walked onto the dock and there she was with her dad. And he was just holding her in his arms. I brushed the hair away from her head and ran my fingers through her hair until I hit the blood. And I pulled back a bit and I put my hand on her shoulder, and I could feel her getting cold. And I had to step away, and I said I was going to check on Jarrett. And I went and found him in the ambulance. And I left her dad with her, told my friend Terrence, who was watching the boat, to watch him. And then my uncle Gary was there, and I told him to watch Terrence because he looked like he was going to fall apart. And then I called my dad. I called my dad on the phone. He's, my dear, I'm on my way. And then I called my Uncle Art because I did not want my mother to hear anything of this on the radio, on the news. My mom suffered an AV malformation, so an amalgamation of blood clots in her brain when I was 10 years old. So she's prone to seizures. So I was imperative that he go to her, which he did the next day. And sure enough, as soon as she heard it, she immediately fainted. You know, so I went into adrenal bam. I'd been living a warrior for the last 20 years in a very tumultuous marriage, running a small business that turned into a very successful business, while raising 5 children. So, I mean, I was always on. And that's what caused me so much harm, was always being on. I mean, I drank probably 20 cups of coffee a day to keep on going. And then I would smoke 2 or 3 joints at night to fall asleep. So my adrenal system was just like, oh boy.
Oh, what are you doing to me?
Exactly. But I was coping, which is all I knew how to do. It's all I knew how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I lived a very reckless lifestyle. Reckless in the fact that I didn't care for myself. I didn't know how.
Oh, wow. Well, the deepest pain that can ever happen to a mother is to lose a youngster like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had 4 sons, and they were, oh my goodness, I was in and out of emergency with stitches and concussions and broken bones and stitches, and oh my gosh. But I never thought Emily, ever in my wildest dreams, never. Her father, a million times. Her brothers, I always had concern. My dad, I had concern. My mom, I had concern. But never, Em, never. Yeah. And in meeting Brenda, it was incredible because Daphne was the one that connected me. So Daphne and I had forged a friendship through going to a vision board workshop of a friend of ours, Janet Wizawati. And I wanted to support Janet, and Daph wanted to support Janet. And so I went to this vision board, even though I still thought vision boards were stupid. And I'm willing to give it another go. So I did. And there was this lady there who I thought had Down syndrome. I really did, darling Daphne. How could anybody be so happy all the time? And then everyone's asking her about her jewelry. So I thought she just came there to sell stuff. I was so bitter. And skeptical. And eventually I asked her about her jewelry, and just a little bit. And then I said, well, these are nice bracelets, but what else do you have? She said, well, I've got necklaces. And I'm like, oh, and where do you have those? And she's like, in my Jeep. And I'm like, oh, great. A gypsy Avon sales lady, right? So I went and looked at them, and the angel wings that she makes, they're just beautiful. I don't have any because I buy them and then I give them away. But so I saw one, and then I asked about 2 if I could get a better rate, and then 3, 4, 5. I bought 5. It was right before Christmas, and everybody either got angel wings or a bottle of booze because I hated Christmas and I didn't want to play. They worked just perfectly. Yeah, so Daphne bugged me once again until I agreed to get in contact. So she says, well, I'll get in contact with the author and I'll have her send you an email. So a couple days later, I'm looking through my emails and I'm like, what the fuck is Brenda sending me an email for? Because at the time, the only Brenda I knew was my ex-husband's fiance. And then I realized that it was oh my God, right? Because my father left my mother for a woman whose name is Brenda. My husband left me for a woman whose name is Brenda. My sweet Ralph's ex-wife's name is Brenda. Along comes Brenda Hammond. And then Daphne's mother's name is Brenda. I mean, the Brenda
That's
thing
a lot of
is,
Brendas.
there's a lot of them. So, and writing an SHR2, Sacred Hearts Rising 2, was, I still am shocked at what I wrote. It wasn't planned. I was going to write this really soft, sweet piece about my daughter. She was in the story, but it's where I admitted my drug addiction. I was shocked. Shocked.
Such a journey that this is.
Oh, it is. And then when it came out and I realized that it was on Kindle or whatever the media format was, oh my God, I was in a complete state of panic because all of the people out there that would know about me, oh my God, I've got to tell my mother. And she says, I always knew there was something. She didn't know what. She probably still can't even fathom the understanding of it all. But no one judged me except for me.
We're the worst critic.
Oh, yeah. And I find that with my writing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's just that's an amazing story. And look at where you are now in comparison. And life is a journey.
It is. It's such a wonderful journey. And I mean, when I started just playing with the idea of writing my memoir, I've got a wonderful friend of mine. Her name is Corrine, and she was my son's and my daughter's preschool teacher. And then she was the lady that I taught preschool with. And then she was the woman who I worked for when I did elderly companionship. And she's always been, I can't wait to read your book. I can't wait to read your book. And then my sons were like, Mom, you keep on talking about doing it, but you ain't doing it. Isn't that what you say to us? You know, and too much of this,
Lead by
and not
example.
enough this, right? So I started writing a little bit, and then I talked to my son Jarrett, and I said, you know, I really want to do this. He goes, well, then do it. And I said, but I don't know how. And he's like, well, then just start asking questions. So that's when I started reaching out, and I'm like, okay, I always go about 20 steps ahead. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I publish this? And that's how I got led to you. Yeah. So, and I mean, Arizona Cardinals, oh my God. Cuba Gooding Jr. is on their team, you know.
That's funny.
Yeah, and I love Arizona. I mean, that's where I took my SRT training, and that was pivotal. Pivotal because I didn't know anything about soul therapy. I mean, at all. And going to Sedona transformed my life. It completely transformed my life. And it was after leaving a very, very abusive work relationship that I went to Sedona.
Wow.
And the training was epic. I mean, I got there and we all use these pendulums. That's what I do when I do my SRT. And everyone's using their pendulum, and it's, you know, giving a clear yes and a clear no, and mine's not working. And I'm like in my head going through the list, Lord, Thunder, and Jesus, I racked up my credit card, quit my job. We need something here. Like EI doesn't start for a little while. And so I raised my hand and I said to Susan, I said, mine's not working. And she said, oh, well, we weren't going to be talking about this until later on, once we start the advanced training. But, well, it seems like Nancy's made some vows and, you know, her past life. And she did this kind of work before. And she's tracing it back. And she's like, well, yeah, see, Nancy was a nun. And I'm like, of course I was. she transformed into more of a Wiccan pagan way and started using the pendulum, and she caused great harm. So yeah, Nancy pretty much wiped out the nunnery and the monastery. And then afterwards, she had such tremendous guilt that she cut her arm off and vowed to never do this again. She goes, but we've cleared her of that. So if you pick up your pendulum, and I pick up my pendulum, and I'm like, now what? She goes, well, just ask. And in my mind, I couldn't comprehend it. And she says, just ask for a clear yes. And she's like, that's right. And I'm just staring at her. And she's like, and a clear no. Yeah. And she goes, look at your pendulum. And then I'm like, that's cool. She's like, do it again. And I'm like, oh my God, it works. Like, this is unbelievable. But for the rest of the day, I was just stuck in the fact that I was a nun.
It works.
I was a nun. I caused great harm. And I mean, that was day one. And it was just such an incredible journey. And I met so many sensational friends. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I have a family of love, friends. I mean, I love what I do in every single form, whether it's studying reflexology like I was doing this morning, or the essential oils that just make my heart shine. I'm learning about crystals now.
There's such a wealth of things that are right at our disposal, isn't there?
There really is.
I keep all mine right here on my table. I've got a whole lineup.
Nice. Good. I
got
have
my handy little sniffer.
Oh, that's why I started with the essential oil certification, because I'm like, a sniffer, inhaler, how do you make those? And I'm like, balms and how do these work? Where do they work? And then as I started learning about the affirmations that match some of the essential oils, I'm like, there's crystals that match these. I'm like, hey, Daphne, what's this? What's this? What's this? She goes, you know this. I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, you do, you know, in here, but I'm extremely Spock-like. So I need to understand and spell and see, and I question everything. So here I am working with crystals too. So it's such a beautiful journey. It's such amazing. A beautiful journey. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I interviewed Jeanette Bureau, have you met her yet?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, what a powerful medium. What a powerful medium. She has the most amazing YouTube page as well as Facebook.
What's her name?
Jeanette. So Ginette Bureau, Biro. Oh, so I interviewed her on the healing page, and I was joking, and I was saying that I'm not a medium, but I'm a large. And she said, oh, you're a maximum. And I'm like, I am, because I didn't understand the difference. I didn't know that I could communicate as a medium, listening to the spirits that have passed, as well as a psychic, listening to the ascended masters about people. And that's one of the reasons why I started studying the essential oils, because I was getting scents, and I'm like, I knew geranium because my Oma, she always sent me geranium. And I knew rose, but I didn't know any of the other ones. And it was just, it was driving me crazy. So now I was working with a client a couple of weeks ago, and it was jasmine. And I had started getting jasmine a week before I started working on him. No clue. And then as we did some investigation a couple of days after his Reiki with aromatherapy, the jasmine was very pivotal, but he didn't like patchouli. His mother's fragrance was Giorgio. It's got patchouli in it. Wow. And he's actually doing the music for my third CD. It's going to be an acoustic guitar CD.
You're a remarkable person.
And I got a lot on my plate. Thank God spirit keeps me going, man. And I nap almost every single day, if not on the bed in the car while Ralph is driving. It's like, you're not a very good navigator. I'm like, well, just napping.
Yeah. At the car.
Yep. Sometimes I'll fall asleep on the car. Yeah. And I love that, because I could never sleep. I could never, ever sleep. So for me, sleep is such a sacred way to connect with the divine. And I've learned how to tell them to be quiet while I sleep so much. And that's one thing that I ask people right off the bat. about their sleep patterns and what keeps them awake at night, because so many people have that constant record player in their head
Mm-hmm.
of their worries and their concerns, and their worries and their concerns, and their worries and concerns. And then I help them tune into that a bit more. Are you worried about what kind of fears do you have? Is it fear of the known? Are you afraid of spiders? Are you afraid that you're going to go bankrupt? Are you afraid that you won't be able to get all of your work done? Is it tangible? Because that's mimulus. That's a flower essence, which is very different than an essential oil, because flower essences vibrate on a soul and emotional level. So for example, pine is for grief. The essential oil is for grief, but the pine essence works with the soul.
That's fascinating.
The essences were brought to me shortly after I had my first reading after Emily passed away, because my father-in-law by design had passed away before Emily, and Keith was very, very, very strong in my life. So he showed up, and Frankie, the lady that was doing the reading for me, she said, she kept on looking over her shoulder at the window, and I'm like, I had no idea what was going on. And she's like, there's a man at the window, big redneck kind of guy. And I thought it was my Opa. And she's like, no, he's big. He's strong, very, very, very strong. And he's banging on the window with the side of his hand. And I'm like, that's Keith. And she goes, yeah, he just stopped banging. And she goes, he wants you to get a card. And she's pointing over there. And I'm like, she had some cards on her table. So I picked that. She said, no, not that one. Over. And as soon as I picked it up, she's like, that's the one. You need to go and see her. And she did biofeedback. So she hooked me up to a machine where I had Velcro straps on my wrists, my ankles, and across my head. And I felt like I was in a session for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And so she did a biofeedback on my body. And one of the things that she did for me was the flower essences. And she created 2 for me. So one that I would take in the morning and one that I would take in the evening. And as well as a rescue remedy that I would take when I had an anxiety attack, because I didn't even know I was having anxiety attacks. I'd had them for so long before Em's passing that I didn't even know. So I took these for a year, and I went from having, oh my God, I had so many bladder infections that the doctors couldn't even keep track of them, to having no bladder infections. My tummy was much better. It was miraculous. So once I went through the treatment with her, I became curious. And that's when I started to do my certification in Bach. And then I created a series of spreadsheets. I think it's about 100 on the Bach. I know. And then I did the same thing for the essential oils. I'm creating the essential oil encyclopedia. And I've got about 120 pages on that one.
Wow. That's
I like
amazing.
spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. I was in accounting for 20 years, right? So spreadsheets,
Right.
and I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Awesome. What a beautiful conversation and unexpected.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the beauty of every day. We don't know exactly how it's going to go out.
Right.
You know, I have a deliberate intention today to complete some tasks and to be creative. So away we
Doing a
go
good
with
job
that.
of it.
And what about you? What do you have planned for the rest of your day?
I do have a lot of appointments today, so I feel very blessed with that. I am also working with the one author to kind of finish her stuff, get it ready for publishing. And she's a very, very emotional with all of it right now. So I'm kind of gently bringing her through that. Some real cool things that, just completing a lot of little items that need to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And I have
So what are the top 3 books that you recommend for writers? Your 3 favorite.
3 favorites. Oh my goodness. For writing, just writing.
Yep.
There's one by, I don't even have it with me. I don't keep names of stuff in I will send them to you, because there's some really good ones. What is his name? And it's called Published.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, he's got a lot of really good suggestions, and I've actually used some of his material for one of the courses that I
Good.
teach.
Good.
And then Everett O'Keefe wrote a really good book on authority,
I don't know that one either.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really good. There's another one, and it's more for not about publishing. It's about getting the buzz for your publishing, and it's called Buzz. It's just called Buzz, and
Wow.
so
Okay.
there's a lot of different books that give kind of a wide variety, and I'll get the links for those and share.
Are those helpful for writers or for publishers?
No, they're good for writers.
Okay. Because the ones that come to mind for me are The Courage to Write, Bird by Bird. That one, I have so many markings in it. Every time I read it, I put more marks with different colored pens. I love that. And then Wounds of Passion.
There's another really good series, and it's not necessarily for writers. It's called Courage to Heal. Have you looked at those?
No.
Really good. Yeah. So I'll send some over, just the links to those. Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. Books are, you know what? I was an only child, and reading for me was my best way of escaping. There's a lot of things I suppressed from my childhood. And I wanted to be a part of a different family. I wanted to be a part of a family where I had brothers and sisters, and the Waltons didn't really resonate with me too much. It was nice, but I wanted something different. So I started reading V.C. Andrews, and I didn't understand why that resonated with me until I was an adult. Then I'm like, okay, wow, that's kind of trippy. And then Danielle Steele. I mean, all of that bubblegum garbage that was just wonderful. And then there was that one series about priests too. Oh my gosh, there were so many. Yeah, and Stephen King. And Stephen King's book, Memoir.
What about
really
the Da Vinci Code? Did you like that?
I never did read that.
Yeah.
I never did. That was probably right around the age where I started smoking more marijuana. Oh, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Yeah. But I started reading again when I was a mom. I wanted that solitude. And then I started writing. I'd gone back to school during my downtime, and I wasn't very good at downtime. So here I am running a business. But when I was spending more time with the children, I still needed to learn. I had an insatiable desire for knowledge. So I started taking creative writing courses through university. And they were okay, but they were pretty dry and driven. And
have you ever used the method of just recording, because you're very good with conversation? So,
I have not.
Just record your thoughts so that you can capture them. There's also a way with the latest versions of Word. There's a lot of programs out there where you can just speak, and like Word will just type it.
There is dictation, so there must be something out there whereby I could speak and then take the phone to the computer after and have the computer listen. Yeah.
So there's a lot of different softwares available that way. So check that out, because since you like to speak, it could help you pull the contents for your book together. Because
absolutely. Yeah, because I do like to handwrite sometimes. Sometimes I'm on my phone. I'll get irritated by something. Irritation is one of my greatest inspirations. And then I'll go off on a really wild, dark tangent. Like some of the things I've written, people are like, that's kind of disturbing. And then I get more airy and fluffy and inspirational. So it's a dichotomy for sure. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for all the wonderful tidbits. That's super cool.
Yeah, I have an appointment that I need to get to, but
Yeah.
I'll send you some of those links and this recording.
Yes, please.
And thank you for this beautiful time. It was
This was
excellent.
great. This
Yeah,
was great. So
what a
soak up
beautiful
the
story.
sun. Soak up the sun. I am.
Yeah, well, you'd feel the sun and you'd go.
Out there I would. Out there I would. Here it's nice. It's
It
nice.
looks beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And this was a pleasure to get to know you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. And thank you.
Okay. You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye.